Добар ден, почитувани. Гостин во неделното интервју на Радио Слободна Европа е шефот на мисијата на УСАИД во Република Македонија, господинот Majkl Fric. Господине Фриц, дали најпрви можете да ни дадете преглед на главните активности на УСАИД во овој период?
Well, since we talked last time, the basic focus is still the same. Our strategy has been built around Macedonia becoming a NATO and EU member, and the issues that Macedonia faces in that process from a developmental standpoint. And so our program, which averages about $20 million a year, has been focusing in three primary areas. Education, which has a focus on basic education, workforce development, and minorities and interethnic issues. We have a democracy and governance program which focuses on decentralization, some more direct things related to implementation of Oak Ridge Framework Agreement. They also work with the judiciary in streamlining judicial processes. They have worked with civil society and a range of other smaller programs within that portfolio. And finally, we have our economic growth portfolio, which has had a focus on small and medium enterprise development. We've worked a lot in policy level, the policy framework, to try and make it easier for businesses to increase employment, to increase Macedonian exports, a certain focus on trying to increase foreign direct investment. That hasn't worked too well, but we also have a workforce component in there as well.
Евидентно е дека Република Македонија има проблем со конкурентноста, со исклучок на суровини, се останато што се произведува многу тешко или воопшто не се пласира на пазарите во Европската унија или на светските пазари. Како може да се реши овој проблем?
There have been some successes. It's as you point out, it's not the rule that Macedonia, as have a lot of countries in kind of the former socialist area, they were in many cases suppliers of bulk materials to other countries where things were processed. And so there's somewhat of a tradition of that here. But we've seen some changes. We've done work with the apparel industry, textiles, and we've helped textile companies in business-to-business interactions with companies from the UK, in which they're now doing what's called full package, which means they do the design and provide a finished product that has much higher value and consequently provides more revenue to the companies in Macedonia. So we're seeing some success in that area. There was an order for 100,000 shoes in that just recently, which had a, let's see, I've got the figure here somewhere, had a value of 2 million euros. So that's fairly significant. And so these are, I hope, and we expect to be kind of the beginning of a new trend of trying to move Macedonian businesses into finished goods rather than, as you point out, raw materials. But we've seen success in some other areas, and there's no reason why it can't be done.
Во последно време се актуализираше откупот на земјоделските производи, посебно на грозјето. Судејќи по медиумските извештаи, владата беше прозивана за тоа што не го подпомогнала откупот. Дали владата е одговорна да го помага откупот на грозјето и на другите суровини?
Well, I mean, the government needs to decide what kind of strategy it wants to have. I mean, it is typical of many countries that have industries in those areas that the government does provide significant support. Examples: Australia, South Africa for wines, that they spend a lot of effort and money promoting wines of South Africa and wines of Australia as a group, not as individual producers or wineries. And obviously, in the impact on the world market has been significant for those. Argentina, other so there is, I think there's a place for that now. I mean, we just heard yesterday that Mac Invest, which has now the mandate for the government to help with not only foreign direct investment, but also with exports, that unfortunately their budget for this next year is only 50,000 euros for that kind of support. That you can't do anything with 50,000 euros. It's going to be impossible for the government to, unless they increase the budget and provide adequate resources to MaCinvest, for the country to really be a partner in trying to stimulate export growth. And we're only around for a few more years. The government really needs to step up to the plate to help. And I'm not dismissing that the businesses have a strong role in this. I mean, they're profit makers. They're not non-for-profits, and so in our projects they cost share. And so with governments, in these other countries, the businesses cost share and they pay a large part of it. But I think that you need to have organizations that help bring them together so that you develop brand recognition. Wines of Macedonia or other kinds of things, which is starting. That's starting to happen, but there are other sectors in which that can happen. Automotive, tool and die. Macedonia's got I think, potential for a very strong tool and die industry, and there's some positive things happening. We've helped companies participate in trade fairs in other countries, and some of the tool and die manufacturers have gotten significant orders and are starting to make inroads into the European automotive market. So there's a lot of potential out there, and it could be realized to a much greater degree if the government was more actively involved.
Што е со конкурентноста на работната сила? Дали нашиот образовен систем произведува кадри кои можат да се снајдат на пазарот на трудот? Дали ни е конкурентна работната сила?
Not yet. I mean, as I mentioned before, we're trying to work on those issues in terms of our educational programs, working with what kind of students are coming out of the education system. We're also working on the demand side. We've developed internship platforms which have been quite successful, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. There's in some markets. Take the apparel industry for example. It's a skilled labor, but it's not a highly skilled labor. But in certain parts of the country, you can't find people that are willing to work in the industry. There's a couple of textile companies that have based themselves here in Skopje, and it probably was a mistake on their part, because even though there's a lot of unemployed people here, they're not interested in working in the textile industry.
Меѓународната заедница и експертската јавност забележуваат дека државната администрација е голема и гломазна. Како може да се реши овој проблем? Дали е неминовно опуштање на вработени во јавната администрација?
There's no simple way to. I mean, if you look historically around the world, when countries have tackled issues of public administration and a bloated civil service, there isn't an easy way to do it. I mean, you do have to get rid of jobs, and in countries with high unemployment, it's very sensitive. So I think that there aren't easy ways to do it. I mean, we've encountered in the institutions that we work with, yes, there's a bloated civil service in some areas, but in other areas where they really need skilled people, they aren't there. And partially it's that government salaries are not competitive sometimes with others. Sometimes there's hiring freezes because of the economic situation now and the budget situation within the country. So it's something that the country is going to have to deal with at some point. And there's lots of reasons why it exists now, but ultimately, somebody's going to have to make the difficult decision that it's time to deal with it, and it may not. I think it may be a very difficult decision for them to take right now. I think it would be a very unpopular move.
Господине Фриц, ви благодарам. Тоа беше се за ова издание на интервјуто на Радио Слободна Европа. Повторна средба за 7 дена.